Hello again. Here's another secret for spiritual life. You can actually get the ego to work for you and help you in your spiritual journey. And in this format of videos, it's not easy to do exercises, but I don't know if you've followed me on other formats, but I'm all about really making things practical and doable and useful. So I thought, well, this one we could do a little exercise. It will only take a moment. So try this. Close your eyes and notice how you're feeling inside. Is there any emotion or hint of emotion, possibly a bit of anxiety or depression or uncertainty or discomfort? Whatever you feel, notice it. And then tell yourself, that's okay, or that's great, or for full marks, and I love that. So just notice to yourself, I am feeling blank. I am feeling, and I love that. And do you notice what happens as soon as you do that? Immediately there are 3 results, 3 benefits to this practice. The first one is that you stop turning pain into suffering. There is a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is what happens. For instance, it's a physiological response to some kind of stimuli, or it's an emotional response to some kind of stimuli. But either way, it just happens. It's there. It comes from outside of you, essentially. Suffering is what we do with the pain to make it even worse. Like to really make it hard on ourselves. We turn pain into suffering. And how we do that is essentially by resisting the pain and telling ourselves, or having this underlying unconscious belief that we shouldn't feel that way, that things shouldn't be this way. So we're resisting it, we're pushing against it, we're trying to run away or hide from it. And all of that does is really increase it, because it's a warning sign from your body or somewhere deeper inside of you trying to get your attention. So the more you're not listening, the louder it's going to get, because it's trying to tell you something important. So when we're feeling, say, anxiety, and we're trying to not feel anxiety, we don't want to feel anxiety, we don't like it, we don't think we should, whatever, we actually get anxious about being anxious. And then you can see how that kind of builds, can't you? It all cycles on itself and just multiplies. Same with being depressed or whatever it is that we're feeling that we think we shouldn't be feeling. The more we try not to feel it, the more we actually do. It just builds on itself. So the first result is that it diffuses that pattern, that cycle of building, and instead of suffering about what we're feeling, we're just feeling it, and it's a much smaller piece to deal with. The second result is that we enlist the ego as an ally. And this is really wonderful, because usually the brain and the ego is trying to trip us up as we're developing spiritually, as we're focusing on the spiritual level rather than the material level. But in this case, we're getting it to work for us. Because whatever we tell ourselves, whatever we think, whatever we say, whatever we believe, it's our brain's job or our ego's job to make that right. It wants to be right more than anything. That's its purpose in a way. So when we say, I'm feeling anxious or whatever, and I love that, and that's great, our mind immediately starts casting around for, why is that great? What's right about that? What's true in that? And then it starts looking for a whole different kind of thing than it's looking for if we're telling ourselves that we're feeling anxious or things are not going well or whatever. So it brings in the most positive aspect of ego that we have, which is using it to forward or to further our positive experiences and our growth and our evolution to more aligned ways of being. The third benefit, immediate benefit, is that it lifts us up to another aspect of consciousness. No longer are we the I feeling anxious. We are now the I noticing the I feeling anxious or depressed or whatever. So I am feeling anxious becomes this little part, and I love that is this expanded self that's encompassing the little one, the little self, that feeling, and the lower, like the mortal perspective of anxiety, depression, whatever. And then not only that, but if you pay attention, see, you can see that you are, you can become the I, seeing the I that is saying, that's great, and seeing the little I feeling that in the first place. So you can go up several aspects of consciousness. And the result of that, what that means is, in practical terms, is that you're no longer being swamped by this emotion that you have no control over, that is messing up what you want in your life, essentially, because we all want to feel good, right, essentially. So instead of being swamped by this emotion that's just come out of nowhere, or, from something that's not under our control, instead of that, we are, we're rising above it. We're like being lifted up above it to a level or two that isn't inside that emotion and trapped in it. Now we're beyond it, and it doesn't have the power over us that it does if we're just kind of getting subsumed into that anxiety or depression, and I'm feeling this and I don't want to be feeling this, and I'm feeling worse about feeling this, and just the burden gets heavier and heavier. So this is a really powerful practice, and it's a way of opening up space around whatever we're feeling and no longer resisting it or fighting it or denying it or repressing it. It's a very functional way of working with them. Because also, once this has all happened, we are able to find out sometimes there's really nothing underneath it. Sometimes the anxiety or depression doesn't, or whatever it is that we're feeling, doesn't have an actual external cause, but it's just a thought process or a habit or an energy that we're used to feeling, or that we've been kind of steeped in from childhood, so it's common to us. And we can lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with that. Let me see if I have some notes that would help me. I remember. I was going to say, it's not even in the notes, but I remember. I was going to say, I've done other practices like this, where the idea is to breathe a little space around the emotion, to feel it, to, instead of trying to resist it in any way, we're just feeling it, we're present with it, we're breathing some space around it, so we get a little bit of expansion around it. I found that tricky to explain to people, though. And sometimes it's tricky to do. What does it really mean to breathe in around a little space around that? Well, this practice I got from Kyle Cease. And I don't think he's ever explained how it works or anything, but just that idea of saying when you feel something, and I love that. I thought that was a stroke of genius, because that immediately creates that space around it. It's not something we have to try to visualize or imagine or whatever. It's automatic. It's right there. And I love that. Automatic breathing space. So that's my best tip for today. And it's one that I'm using already. It came up because I am feeling anxious this morning. And I don't know why particularly. I mean, there are a few minor things that could be a cause if I wanted to look at it that way. But realistically, from a higher perspective, it's really just that I have a habit of anxiety from the way I grew up, from my household, my family pattern. So instead of going into that anxiety, I'm doing this practice. And I love that. And I thought, I should share that with people today. That's where I am. That's what's going on for me. And it's another valuable tip for the spiritual path. All right, there we go. I hope that you can try this today. Like, see if you can't just notice throughout the day, here and there, take a moment and go, how am I feeling? What's going on in me? And then noticing that, and then saying, and I love that. Or if that's too far, say, and that's great. I often find that when somebody else is bugging me, I can often go, and that's great. And immediately my brain starts looking for, yeah, why, that's really great. That's really okay. So give it a shot today, see how it goes. And I will be doing the same, I promise you. And then we'll check back in tomorrow. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you then. Blessed be.